Welcome back. I need to point out that while we're talking about criticisms of the media, while Hussein was dissecting the Trinidad coverage, we also had the Sinusha Labour Party criticizing the coverage of the local media, suggesting that they too have been given too much emphasis or putting too much emphasis on triviality, on fluff. We heard the reaction of the Media Association president saying, well, if that's what you present on the platform, then that's what we're going to cover. But I need to make the observation, because as I read the article and I heard it on the news this week, it reminded me of another article that I read and we discussed before, looking at coverage of political campaigns. This one focused on Newsweek and Time Magazine, as well as the New York Times coverage of elections in the U.S. And a lot of the same complaints are being made about the U.S. media, that they focus on triviality rather than on substantial developmental issues.
They're focusing on Trump.
You know,
they count him out.
And it's not just Trump, you know, we're talking about way back in 1980s, 1990s election coverage.
Over time.
1984, for instance, the New York Times spent nearly a third of its coverage of the last week of the 1984 presidential election on polls. You know, it's like what the article is suggesting is a lot like covering athletics, horse races, you know, who's outperforming
who is in front,
you know, what the polls are saying rather than, you know, what they're going to offer. You look at Donald Trump's coverage, that's all it's about.
Trump is a master media manipulator.
You understand? I think he knows that, and a lot of politicians
Trump had his reality show. Trump was on TV for years. You know, he knows the screen more than any other.
And that's what TV is about. It's about personality. And that's what the elections are becoming about, personality rather than
and every statement by President Obama gives him more attention. Now, today I was watching President Obama at this nuclear summit saying, well, you know, Donald Trump wants to be the President of the United States. The President of the United States needs to know what's happening around the world, but Donald Trump doesn't know anything about foreign policy, nor does he know anything about the rest of the world. Now, I mean, that's about Trump. So that is going to be in the news. And Trump may not even respond, but he will benefit from it.
And you realize that every time his numbers start going down, he says something more outrageous.
Oh yes. Trump is Trump, and interestingly, last night BBC, or in this weekend's BBC reports, an interview was done with the scriptwriter for The Simpsons. And The Simpsons, I saw the episode. The Simpsons had an episode in which they had predicted that Trump would be president. He would be running for president, and he would be president. The writer was interviewed by BBC Newsnight today, and he said, "Listen, when he wrote the script, they said Trump will be president, but didn't say Donald. So, you know, maybe after he loses, his daughter or his ex-wife may come, and that may be the Trump that will." So I mean, they don't want to identify with Trump's campaign right now to say, well, the Simpsons, you know, for Trump to say the Simpsons predicted I would be. But I think in the case of St. Lucia, I do not agree, without being accused of cherry picking, I do not agree with the Media Association's president's conclusion that if fluff is what is presented on the platform, that is what we'll cover, because in the case of Philip J. Pierre, he spoke for a very long period of time, and the only thing that was reported or seen as worth reporting was that he said that Dominic Fede was running around, shot Dominic Fede, Guyanese running around. He didn't say anything, he didn't lie, but I'm sure he said more substantial issues. I also read elsewhere where he proved with figures which of the last two ministers of tourism had delivered more for tourism. Alan Chastanet vis-a-vis Lon Theophilus, and he gave some damning statistics there.
But I want to agree with you, Sindo, up to a point. And while I disagree with the Media Association president as well, I don't also agree with the SLP entirely. But as far as Hussein's criticisms of the print media, I think the broadcast media, radio and television, are limited in how much they can present because of the time constraints. But one expects in your busy life,
which makes the onus on us to be more careful as to what we choose to present.
Exactly. But in the case of the newspapers, you've had time to prepare an entire week, for instance, you know, to dissect the issues, you know, based on what Philip Pierre or any other candidate said on the platform, you know, to do your research, do subsequent interviews, you know, to present something to the electorate that they can sit down and look and say, well, you know, this is where the party stands, this is where this particular candidate stands on these issues, you know, and I walk away as a more informed.
One person is doing that in The Voice, John Peters, with a column called People's Manifesto.
But he's not a mainstream journalist.
No, he's not a mainstream journalist. I'm saying
and that was one of Hussein's criticisms as well. There is that kind of analysis and commentary.
But not from the press.
Exactly. And so the back of the newspaper is buried.
Now,
and if you use the idea of selective
there's nothing
attention,
to prevent The Voice, The Star, The Mirror, any other news agency from quoting John Peters as an article, as an item, which would assist in taking his interesting presentation away from just The Voice and sharing it as part of the general fare. So, you know, I agree with Clinton. We choose what we report. What I'm saying is that we have to, in making that choice, it should more be colored by, in my view, us being able to help the people we're giving that information make a proper choice, a comfortable decision, one that they will feel good about, rather than what we present being colored by how we think individually about politicians, about politics, or about the people who talk about us. I don't think we have a role in responding to criticism of us in terms of whether it is fair or not. If it's fair, let's take it in a fair way. If it's unfair, it's not worth responding to.
Yeah, but you see, you are able to approach things and look at it with a degree of maturity that comes from several years of experience in this field, you know. And before we end, I have to congratulate you and wish you happy anniversary.
That wasn't meant to be just for laughs.
April 1st. April 1st would have marked your 40th anniversary in journalism. Congratulations on 40 years.
Yes, and it had nothing to do with All Fools Day. It wasn't a foolish decision. I've never regretted it. Quite a lot is happening this year. I got my national award for journalism. I've observed my 40th anniversary of the first day I worked in media, in that the 1st of April 1976 I started off as editor of the Crusader, and later this year there's another big one. You know, another big one in May. You'll hear about that one later. Anyway, thanks.
Now you're doing a recording on us, whetting our appetite and leaving us hanging.
That one will have many words, many words, many words.
But in terms of big things, before we wrap up, Sunday could see some major and big things happening as far as West Indies cricket. We have the West Indies facing England, that's the male team, and we have the ladies team facing Australia in the T20 finals.
And don't make the mistake that everybody else has made this weekend. Everything you've said there is true. We're hoping that Darren Sammy and Johnson Charles and the men's team can get the trophy, beat England. We're also hoping the women can beat Australia and bring the trophy out. But you've left out the youth.
The under-19?
The under-19 team set the stage. They have already done what no other West Indies team has done, which is to beat India at home, which was trying to beat a second time, and they won the trophy. So the West Indies under-19 team already have that trophy. They have set the stage. And if Sammy and the men's team and Stephanie Taylor and the women's team can carry that well before the sun set tomorrow night, West Indies will have achieved something that will be difficult, if not impossible, to erase. That one region wins 3 international tournament championships, you know, at 3 different levels in less than a month.
Let's hope. Looking forward to the matches tomorrow. I'm sure everybody's going to be glued to their televisions. The streets will probably be empty. And when I'm going to...
And I hope all the people who pray in Babo know how to...
I'm sure they did. Well. I'm sure they did. And when they win, I'm not saying if, when they win, we know what's going to happen. It's going to be one big party around the Caribbean and further afield.
I was invited somewhere in Dennery tomorrow. I told the fella that's a bad day.
Yeah. Reminds me of those Mike Tyson fights. A pleasure always having you.
Okay.
We're looking forward to joining us next week for another edition of the Press Club. Until then, have yourselves a safe weekend.